All right. We'd like to welcome you here. Propaganda, Jason?
Yes, sir.
Prop, you said you answered to it all.
I answer
right?
to it all.
It's been very good to have you here in Moscow for the last couple of days working on a project that I'll ask you about in a little bit. But the reason you're here is because you're a worker with words.
Yes, sir.
All right, hip-hop artist. Could you start by telling us when you first knew, in your life, when you first knew that words were a thing?
Man, I guess my father was a pretty avid reader. You know, when he was around, like he was an avid reader. He kept us in libraries. You know, I used to have to write him book reports when I was a kid. You know,
You'd have you read a book and write him.
and I have to write him a report. Yeah, and so I guess the power of communication, you know, through words was probably pretty young. My first love was illustration, though. I was a visual artist first, but I think around maybe my early teens.
Okay.
Like, I think I can do this. I think I can write.
What was there? You know, there are words that are phone book words, and
Yeah.
then there are words that have a punch or concentrated words, poetry.
Yeah.
When did you first get interested in poetry or song lyrics, or how'd that come about?
Man, funny. You know, I fell in love with rap music, hip hop, pretty young. But it wasn't until college, specifically for poetry, for me. And funny story is, it was like I had a crush on a girl, and
that's the way the world works.
Right. She was a poet. She invited me to an open mic, and it's just like, it was just providence, because just the idea of, you know, no music, one spotlight, you're holding attention for 4 minutes.
Right.
You know, how good of a writer do you have to be able to do that? And so I was hooked.
So the shorter answer is, why is there poetry? Because they're girls.
There it is.
All right.
Seal it up.
Tell us briefly. I understand you have an album just coming out, just about to come out, or
Yes.
just come out.
Yes.
Tell me about it.
Hey, yeah. Very soon in this year. It's called Crimson Chord.
Okay.
Again, it's also like all my other works, like a hybrid of rap and poetry.
Okay.
You know, respecting both genres and crafts, but trying to put them in one project. Essentially, kind of a celebration of God working through the ordinary. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Just that my life's not the book of Exodus. You know,
Right.
It's more like Ruth. You know, where there's just normal workings and tragedies. But when you look back, you can see the fingerprints of the Father, that your scarlet red timeline, you know, your timeline, or your crimson cord. You know what I mean?
And so it's a concept album. There's this theme,
top to bottom. Yeah.
Okay. And it's just about. Is it released yet, or is it?
It's not released yet. My label will kill me if I say what day.
Okay, all right.
But it's very, very, very
Very
soon.
soon. So
Yes.
check every day.
Yeah, check every day.
All right. Good. Summarize. Why are you here in Moscow, Idaho? What brought you here?
Well, besides being a fanboy of the entire movement that's happening up here, and got approached by Nate Wilson for a project. He's doing a full short film production of The Hounds of Heaven,
Right.
Classic Victorian poetry piece, and brought me out to do the narration, kind of little acting debut. It's not too much of a stretch though, because it's a poem.
It's a poem.
Yeah.
Was there anything that obviously Victorian poetry? But you're a Christian. He's a Christian. There are commonalities, but was there anything that surprised you getting into that poem?
Yeah. I think it's kind of like any dialect or language. You know, the more you're around it, the more you start kind of understanding and the nuances. But I think what surprised me the most was probably the similarities in wordsmithing.
Right.
In that, you know, knowing a little bit about the author, like, you know, he wasn't from the academy, like, so he wasn't formally trained in language. In a lot of ways, very layman's, the way that the thing is written. So I almost see it as similar to like Paul with like Koine Greek. You know what I mean? Like this is the layman's language, you know, and then ultimately kind of like folk music and hip hop. Like this is the language of the people. You know what I mean? So
developing his own way of speaking.
So you're developing your own way of speaking, and if you understand, you know, how words are put together, you can kind of make words up. You know, and I was very surprised in seeing that that was happening, because that happens often in my world. You know, if you understand words, you can put them together.
So, and it's astonishing how the human need is constant. There's God, Jesus, sinners.
Right. Pretty much it.
Pretty basic.
Yeah.
What projects do you have coming up? What do you want to? Are you going to continue to pursue rap, hip hop?
Yeah.
What have you found your wheelhouse?
Yeah.
In this?
I think in some ways I have, in the sense of the idea of social commentary, the idea of engaging culture, kind of in the wheelhouse of kind of thought leading, you know.
Right.
And just in my context, like, you know, rap has been the stage for which that's been allowed to happen. But obviously, you know, at some point, you know, you look silly up there in a hoodie, you know what I mean, trying to rap, you know what I mean. So that and that day, if that day comes, you know, I feel like poetry is more of a long haul. I think that, you know, our world and civilization has in times past supported a you know, professional poet, you know what I mean, that has existed in civilization. And I think just kind of in the way that the world's going, I think that there might be a lane for that. You know?
We talked a little bit the other day at a meal about the relationship of the world, you know, being a Christian. Mm-hmm. You mentioned someone told you, I think your pastor, that you're too Christian for the world and too worldly for the Christians.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about the intersection of those two things. I think I commented, I recently read something by Martin Luther: if you want to be a Christian cobbler, don't put little crosses on the shoes. Make good shoes. That you know.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Yeah.
So does that resonate with you? What are you trying to do in this intersection between faith and secular? Do you? How do you understand?
Man, exactly how that quote works. Exactly how that works. The last record I did was called Excellent, and it was essentially that concept that your presence. Robert Henry, the 19th century illustrator, he had this quote that he says, "The presence of good art will unconsciously refine a community, and poor art will do it incalculable harm." Right. Okay. So as a believer, my presence in this community, making good, high and lofty art, can refine the world around me. You know what I mean? It allows you to it's water. You're allowed to get into different crevices of the culture, and exist there simply off the level of execution. Okay. So I think as a believer, that's your capital. This is your currency. Right. Your currency, especially in the art world, is your execution.
Now, some of the people watching this, I'm just guessing, are going to trip over hip hop and refined.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are going to think that you just get up there and talk whatever comes off the top of your head. Yeah. But your craft, it's disciplined, very focused. Disciplined. What you're doing is deliberate. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. There's rules to hip hop, like and even the geopolitical milieu that it grew out of, you know. There's stories behind these things. There's history, you know. Things don't happen in a vacuum. There's historical context. So hip hop has these things, you know. The idea of, again, the language of the broken, the idea of struggle, the idea of desiring a better world around you. So all of that is involved in hip hop, and there's a way to make a song.
Those are the themes. And then you've got a way of expressing.
There's the marriage between, you know, the marriage between the beat and the words, you know what I mean? Like there's, you got to be on beat, you know, right. and then just the party part of it, like the rock the party, the participation, put your hands in the air, the sing along ability, if you will, you know what I mean? All of that goes into making good hip hop.
Okay.
And those need to be valued just as much as the content and the message. And I think if one of those are off kilter, I think you're doing your message and your craft a disservice. Okay. I take a lot of examples from Book of Daniel and his existence in Babylon and his commitment of being like, look, I'm just going to outperform who you guys have.
In Proverbs it says, do you see a man who excels in his work? He will stand before kings.
Yes.
So cream rises.
Cream rises.
Cream rises. So I'm assuming that this being a human pursuit, human endeavor, you're going to have people who are disciplined craftsmen in this field, and you're going to have posers. You're going to have people who want to all hat, no cattle, all foam, no beer, all beat, no rap. Right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Someone once looked at the entertainment room. So much genius, so little talent.
Yes.
Right. So there will be people. There's a constant winnowing that has to go on. What would you say to a young person who feels what you felt a number of years ago, an impetus, an urge, or a calling to go that direction?
Yeah.
Let's finish with an exhortation to that person. What would you say to him?
Man, I would say be disciplined and go to some hostile environments.
Okay.
Go get on a stage. Go sling swords with the best of them and really see how you measure up. And I think that that's the best way to sharpen how you're going to say it, and really have something to say that somebody really.
By
wants to
hostile
listen
art,
to.
you mean don't. I think the other day you mentioned someone who's a great artist but a poor performer.
Yes, that's part of it. Yeah, so with the advent of YouTubes and things like that, you can stay in your basement and really work on making music, but you're still by yourself. Like, you're not looking a person in the face who can react to what's happening at that moment, and having to learn to think on your feet and adjust and become engaging.
When you're making a YouTube video in your mom's basement, no one ever boos you.
Yeah, and you could block comments. You just block, don't allow comments. And then
I don't like the way this is going.
I don't like this going. Yeah, you just block it. No, but being existing in the culture, understanding that rap is just a piece of what hip hop grows out of. So if you're just appreciating the piece, I would make it. I make the comparison to, if you're biting in a burrito, nobody says these are great beans.
Right.
You say, no, this is a good burrito. You know what I mean? So it's all necessary. You know what I mean? So understanding the blanket for which a diamond sits on, you know what I mean? Like, understand the blanket also. Right. So I think for a young artist, like, go get involved in the culture. Go see what's happening. If your local scene doesn't know you, I don't think you're ready for a stage yet.
Okay, good. Well, I understand that you have a plane to catch.
I do have a plane to catch.
Well, thank you for being with us.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.